2017 sucks. Oh my god, I was definitely born in the wrong generation. Man, I wish I could have been born in the 70s now. That was a time to be alive.
Do you
Jesus
now?
Christ, what? Who
I
are
think
you?
it's your lucky day,
What?
buddy.
Who are you and how'd you get into my house?
That's not important because right now it's time to go. All
okay,
right.
what, go where? What?
We're going back to the time of vinyl, of pet rocks, and of CB radio. Okay,
Wait,
ready? Doesn't matter.
No. Oh.
Okay, this happens every time. I'm sorry.
What's happening?
Don't be a
What?
spaz. Calm down.
What?
Look around you. We're in the 70s, 1975 to be exact.
What is happening?
I'm glad you're asking. See, today, America watched on as Republican President General Ford took office.
Oh, like, you mean everything went red again?
Actually, lucky for you, because of Richard Nixon's little hiccup, he lost all sorts of governmental support, therefore making everything in the government except for the executive branch as blue as the shores of Vietnam. Take a walk with me.
Okay. So, what happened with everything else part of the government, like the legislation and all that?
Well, the first thing that General Ford decided to do when he came into office was enact an enormous tax cut. Now, we're talking $22 billion.
$22 billion? That's like at least 50 soda cans.
You're not wrong. But speaking of counting, he also passed the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, which allowed any individual with any sort of disability to get a free public education. Now, how are you doing with your metrics in school?
What do you mean, like metrics?
Like, we're talking like meters, kilometers.
I prefer freedom units.
Well, it looks like you can't conduct any business with that. See, in 1977, General Ford also passed the Metrics Conversion Act, allowing all businesses to only, conduct business with metric units.
Is that even constitutional, or?
Yes, it very much is. But what the Supreme Court deemed unconstitutional in 1977 was the stopping of individuals at the border for no discernible reason. It was a case called this.
What are you pointing at? What?
Doesn't matter.
But-
I don't know how to pronounce it.
Anyways, this General Ford guy, he seems pretty cool.
Don't get your hopes up too much for the end of this decade, because we're about to talk about Jimmy Carter.
So tell me a bit about this Jimmy Carter guy.
Well, Jimmy Carter was a Democrat who came into presidential office in 1978. Now, to the content of you, my young millennial, he kept both the Senate and the House completely blue, just like your lovely eyes.
But my eyes are brown.
See, America had this little issue called 65% annual increase in gas consumption. Now, this had been going on since 1973, but Carter was the first president to notice it. So in response, he passed the Emergency Natural Gas Act, which allocated the interstate natural gas production and created a Department of Energy to regulate existing gas suppliers.
What are you looking at?
It's my telegram.
Telegram? What? I don't...
So since we're talking about good ideas, in 1977, the Soviets decided it'd be a fantastic thing to push their Marxist regime by invading Afghanistan. Now, Carter and the American population really didn't take a liking to that. We decided we were boycotting the 1980 Moscow Games.
Like the Olympic Games?
Yeah, that was good.
As if any American's athletic enough to be part of the games.
Oh, that's right, I forgot you were American. Anyway, for some news south of the border, Panama, you know their canal, right? The one that connects the Atlantic to the Pacific?
Yeah.
Right, well in 1979, Carter passed a deal basically giving the Panama Canal back to Panama, who rightfully owns it, in 1999. Now, I got some stuff to take care of. Play with this.
This is the
Yeah.
rock. What?
Oh, shoot, do you have my notes on you? Thanks so much. All right. Yes, that's where we were. Well, let's take a look at how both presidents did economically. See, both General Ford and Jimmy Carter kept one thing very consistent throughout both presidencies. The unemployment rate dropped from 8.1% all the way down to 5.9%. And fortunately, America was doing pretty well. Up until 1977, such inventions as the MRI and the Apple II, sparking the computer revolution, made the economy pretty much keep a general upward trend. Unfortunately, a recession hit us in 1978, and it hit hard. The only thing that went up were gas prices, which went all the way up to $2.3 a gallon by the end of 1979, something that pretty much anyone could have seen given Carter's renewable energy bill. This isn't my house, so take a walk with me. See, I would have bought this house, but unfortunately the housing bubble that popped in 2008 started this year in 1979. Now, it's time for me to meet back up with my millennial friend. Let's hope he hasn't gotten himself into too much trouble. Well, that's about all I have politically and economically for the second half of this decade.
Alright, listen, man, this is really interesting and all, but I don't really care. Plus, there's a Star Wars marathon on the CW at 9.
Did you say Star Wars? Stay right there. Don't move a muscle. Heads up.
This is a broomstick.
Is it though?
Okay!
Do you know that the first Star Wars came out in 1977, starring Mark Hamill?
I mean, no.
Well, now you do. You know what else came out in 1977?
You?
Come on, it's 2017. You can't. Oh wait. Damn, we're out of time for this bit. Get out of here. Right. Well, where I was going to go with that was that George Moscone, the openly gay mayor of San Francisco, was shot by Dan White, a man who was given a very lenient sentence for first-degree murder. The lenient sentencing of Dan White caused what was known as the White Knight Riots. See, this is where the gay community of San Francisco got together and decided to protest the unfair prosecution. Now, this is only one of many events that marked the hardships that minorities and women had to go through during the 70s. Unfortunately, it was not a very progressive era, with the Equal Rights Amendment only finally being ratified in Indiana in 1977. This is all unfortunate, but there were some great things to come out of the 70s. See, Star Wars was not the only classic that emerged from this era. Movies such as The Shining and Jaws terrified both adults and children alike in the theaters before they went back home to watch their favorite cartoons like Tom and Jerry and Scooby-Doo. Now, if you're like me and you like yourself some disco, the Bee Gees were huge. In fact, two of their biggest hits, both Stayin' Alive and Night Fever, came out during 1977. Around the same time, 70s rock shook the world with... hey, who's your new friend?
Oh, she's the one that picked me up from the ground. If you slammed me into the concrete.
Right, well, welcome. Anyway, 70s rock shook the world with its new up-and-coming subgenres of hard rock and heavy metal. Now, around the same time also, jumpsuits were being worn and, oh, I'm sorry to tell you, but wives were being swapped.
Bye. What if it's a swap?
Now that's
We like
unfortunate.
it.
Anyway, in 1977, Pelé began his domination of the soccer field, inspiring Americans, Brazilians, and people all around the world to play the sport. Also in 1978, the first Ironman triathlon was held, setting the stage for years and years of strength and conditioning trials to come.
So the Americans could play in the Olympics.
Oh, my misguided millennial friend. Yes, they could. Now, I've told you everything there is to know about this generation. I think it's time we get you home.
It was no!
Oh, it was just a dream. Oh, thank God that guy was insane. Oh.
Using too much of now. Where are you? Russia wants the Middle East now. Come on, General Fool, we see you. Pretend we need magic, you and but you're not fooling us with your deal. The economy's going down now. Yeah, we got a government to run, so presidents be letting us on us. Don't hold back, Mr. President. If you come to your gun, have yourself second up. Where are you? You're ready and you're needed. If we can count on you, Jimmy got time. I know we'll catch that guy, mate.